Hello, my name is Lauren, and I'm 32 years old. I was married to my husband Ryan for 3 years before something unexpected happened that turned our lives upside down. It all began with the arrival of my younger sister, Julie. She's 3 years younger than me, and during our childhood, she was nothing short of a bully. Julie had inherited my mother's striking features, sharp facial structure, slim figure, and piercing blue eyes. Meanwhile, I took after my father with brown eyes and a softer, fuller body. Growing up, I struggled with my weight and had to adhere to strict diets to maintain a healthy shape, whereas Julie stayed effortlessly slim without any such efforts. Our relationship as teenagers was strained, to say the least. Julie always thought she was better than me and made sure I felt it. But I wasn't one to be easily pushed around. Our arguments often escalated into intense fights, far beyond typical sibling rivalry, and our parents frequently had to step in. When I left home for university, I felt a huge sense of relief. We didn't stay in touch much after I moved out, only seeing each other on a few occasions where we managed to remain civil. One day, as I was finishing up work at the office, I received a surprising phone call from Julie. "Hey Lauren, it's Julie." "Julie, hi, what's up? It's been a while." "Yeah, I just got a job in Texas, but I don't have a place to stay yet. I'm new to the city, and it's my first time outside Maryland. Can I crash at your place for a few days until I find somewhere?" I hesitated, but then found myself agreeing. Okay. "Great, see you soon. Bye." I had moved to Texas after university for work and had settled down there. Even now, I'm not entirely sure why I said yes to her request. Julie was still single at the time, according to her mother. She hadn't found the right man yet, so she chose to stay single. When I got home, I told Ryan about the situation, and his reaction was pretty laid back. "As long as she doesn't cause any trouble for me, it's fine. We can set up the guest room for her," he said. I never told Ryan about the troubled relationship I had with my sister, Julie. To be honest, I was too embarrassed to bring it up. I wanted to leave the past behind and never mentioned it to anyone. At first, when Julie moved in, she didn't cause any trouble. She mostly stayed in her room and kept to herself. But over time, I started to notice that she was getting closer to Ryan. It had been almost 3 weeks since she came to stay with us, even though she initially asked for just a week. I knew how hard it could be to find a place in the heart of the city, so I couldn't just ask her to leave. One day, I came home and found Ryan and Julie sitting comfortably on the sofa, chatting and snacking together. It caught me off guard because it was the first time I'd seen them spending time together like that. Ryan usually came home late from work, so it was surprising to see him there early. "What's going on, guys?" I asked. "Hey, Lauren, Julie and I were just talking about our college days. Your sister is really fun," Ryan said with a grin. I smiled and nodded, trying to hide my unease. I was actually thinking maybe Julie should stay with us instead of finding another place, Ryan suggested. "We have a spare room anyway, but she's worried you might not like the idea." "If you're okay with it, then so am I replied. "She's my sister, after all." "But Ryan, how come you're home so early?" "I wasn't feeling well, so I took a half day and came home this afternoon. Julie was really sweet and made some hot soup for me. I'm feeling much better now," Ryan explained. "That's nice. Thanks for taking care of him, Julie," I said, trying to sound genuine. "Of course. Besides, Ryan is really fun to be around. You're lucky to have found such a charming man with money," Julie teased. "Excuse me," I said, feeling a bit taken aback. "I was just joking, Lauren. Relax. You still don't get my jokes, do you?" Julie laughed. "Oh, you got her, Julie. Look at her face," Ryan chimed in, both of them laughing like school kids. I forced a smile and excused myself, heading to my room. Deep down, I wasn't sure if letting Julie stay with us was a good idea. I had this nagging feeling that she was still the same person who couldn't stand anyone having a better life than hers. But I couldn't bring myself to say no to her just based on a hunch. They say instincts are like guardian angels, and mine were screaming that something wasn't right. Ryan seemed to be increasingly fascinated by Julie, her fashion sense, her diet plans, her habits. It all felt off to me. I eventually confronted Ryan about his growing closeness to her, but he just brushed it off. "Don't be jealous, I'm just being a good host to your sister," he said dismissively. But my instincts told me there was more to it than that, and I couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was brewing. I started to notice a change in Ryan's behavior over time. He became irritable at the smallest things, and never missed a chance to criticize me, whether it was about my fashion choices, eating habits, or anything else. He would often say things like, "Lauren, you should really consider updating your wardrobe. Maybe you could take some fashion tips from your sister." I'd respond, "Thanks for the advice, but I think I have a pretty good sense of style, and I'm comfortable with the way I dress." But he'd snap back, "You're just jealous of Julie, aren't you? She's only 3 years younger than you, but she looks so much more youthful and attractive. Looks like you're too fascinated by my sister, aren't you?" I'd reply, feeling the sting of his words. "Damn, I think I married the wrong sister," he once joked, but there was an edge to his voice that made it clear it wasn't just humor. I shot him a look of frustration, but he just shrugged it off. "Come on, I was just kidding. Relax, honey." His so-called humor felt like a constant jab, and it didn't take long for Julie to join in. Together, they made me feel like an outsider in my own home. The situation escalated 2 weekends when I was getting ready for an office party. I chose to wear a red gown that I thought looked stunning. "Wow, that's a beautiful red dress," Ryan remarked. "It would look absolutely fabulous on you, Julie." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. Julie, lounging on the sofa, smirked and added, "Lauren's just wasting her money on these dresses. I mean, why spend so much when you're going to look ugly no matter what you wear? I feel sorry for you, darling." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you both out of your minds? Do you even realize how hateful and cruel you sound?" Ryan dismissed my reaction, saying, "Honey, you're overreacting. I just meant you shouldn't waste money on clothes that don't suit you. You should wear something more appropriate for your age, something more comfortable." "Comfortable?" I shot back. "You're only a couple of years younger than me. Besides, it's my choice what I wear. You have no right to dictate that." Julie chimed in with a smirk. "Such a narcissist, aren't you? Ryan, how did you even fall for her? Doesn't she look older than you?" "Well, she is 3 years older than me," Ryan admitted, his tone almost teasing. "Wow, that must be why we get along so well, Ryan," Julie joked. "Don't worry, Lauren. People like us just don't get your fashion sense." They both started laughing, sharing in their twisted camaraderie. That was the last straw for me. "Enough," I shouted. "How dare you both sit in my house and gang up on me like this? How dare you speak to me with such disrespect?" Julie's expression darkened, and she shot back, "You're so insecure, Lauren. Are you seriously accusing me of trying to mess with your husband?" "Don't you dare twist my words," I warned. "I'm not like you, desperate and willing to do anything to get what I want." The tension in the room was palpable, and I knew that things would never be the same. The bitterness and betrayal had driven a wedge between us that couldn't be easily repaired. I stormed out of the house, fuming with anger and cursing myself for ever letting Julie stay with us. As I walked, I couldn't help but think of ways to get back at those two for turning my life upside down. The next day, Ryan approached me with a request that was both surprising and infuriating. "Hey, I think we should give our bedroom to Julie," he said casually. "What? Why on earth would you suggest that?" I snapped, barely able to contain my frustration. "Well, Julie's been complaining that her room is too small, the mattress is uncomfortable, and she doesn't like the fixtures in the guest bathroom," he explained. Isn't that a bit much? We've given her a place to stay, and instead of being grateful, she's nitpicking everything. There's no way I'm giving up our bedroom for her, I shot back. Come on, she's a guest. We should do our best to make her comfortable, he insisted. Technically, she's not a guest anymore since you've invited her to stay permanently. Even if she were a guest, the guest room is exactly where she should be, I responded, holding my ground. Ryan's face darkened with annoyance. Julie was right, you're insecure and selfish, he said before storming out of the room. I was exhausted by their constant demands and mind games. My sister had always been jealous and spiteful, unable to tolerate anything good happening to me. Our bedroom was larger and more comfortable than the guest room, and it seemed like she couldn't stand that fact. I had noticed her snooping around in my room, checking out my wardrobe, but I never imagined she'd go so far as to ask Ryan to switch rooms. This incident made me rethink all the little things I'd brushed off before. Sometimes my wardrobe looked different, with clothes that had been neatly ironed now wrinkled, and my makeup items left in disarray. I became certain that Julie was sneaking into my room while I was out, but I needed solid proof before confronting her. I decided to vacuum the room thoroughly, hoping to find some evidence. Halfway through, I discovered something that confirmed my suspicions: Julie's ring, lying beneath the bed. That small discovery set off a whirlwind of thoughts in my mind. Why was she sneaking into my room? Was she stealing from me? Or was there something more sinister going on? The idea that she might be having an affair with Ryan crossed my mind, and I knew I needed to confront her in front of him to gauge his reaction. Later that day, I approached her with the ring in hand. Julie, while I was cleaning the bedroom today, I found your ring beneath my bed. Here, you might want this back, I said, watching her closely for any sign of guilt or surprise. I handed the ring to her. Oh, thank goodness you found it. I've been looking for this for days, Julie said with a calm smile. I watched them both carefully. Ryan looked confused, while Julie remained surprisingly composed. How exactly did your ring end up in my bedroom? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Oh, I was changing in your room, and it must have slipped off my finger and rolled under the bed. I searched for it but couldn't find it, she replied, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. I was stunned by how casually she responded. And why were you changing in my room? I pressed. Oh, I used your bathroom because the water wasn't running properly in mine, so I thought it would be easier to use yours, she said, still calm. Really? But you didn't mention anything to me. I could have called a plumber to fix it, I said, not buying her story for a second. Before Julie could answer, Ryan cut in. Come on, Lauren, why are you making such a big deal out of this? It's a small thing. And besides, that's why she wanted to switch rooms anyway. I'll call the plumber and get it sorted. Julie had always been a master at lying, even when we were kids. I knew she was making up this story on the spot, and I could see that Ryan, who had been confused at first, was now completely taken in by her calm demeanor and smooth lies. It was clear to me that something was going on between them, but I needed solid proof before I confronted them. Otherwise, I would just come across as paranoid. So, I decided to bide my time, swallow my anger, and gather evidence. We had lived in that apartment for years, and I had a good relationship with the security guards and the building's caretaker. The next day, I casually struck up a conversation with the guards, trying to gather information about Ryan's comings and goings. To my surprise, one of the guards told me that Ryan came home every afternoon and then left again before evening. That piece of information was the missing link I needed. I was shocked he was taking breaks from work to come home and spend time with Julie, only to return to the office as if nothing had happened. It was infuriating, but I didn't let my anger show. Instead, I began to plan my revenge on both of them. Sleeping in that bed, knowing what had been happening behind my back, made my skin crawl. But the thought of exposing my sister and my deceitful husband kept me going. I knew I had to be smart about it. I devised a plan to finally confront them. I called my parents-in-law and invited them over for lunch, telling them that Ryan had been promoted and I was throwing a surprise party to celebrate. I'd offered to pick them up the next day in the afternoon, so we could all arrive at the house together. Little did they know, this was all part of my plan to reveal the truth and take back control of my life. I considered calling my parents to witness the shocking scene that was about to unfold, but I hesitated. I was worried my mother might accidentally tip Julie off, so I decided to keep them out of the loop. The next afternoon, I called the security guard of our building. "Hi, this is Lauren from apartment 255. I can't seem to reach my husband, Ryan. Did you see him come home this afternoon?" "Yes, he just arrived a little while ago." "Do you want me to pass a message to him?" The guard replied. "No, that's okay. I'll try calling him on the landline." "Thank you," I said before hanging up. I quickly drove over to my parents-in-law's house to pick them up. "Hey, come on in," I greeted them with forced enthusiasm. "Lauren, why did you plan a surprise on a weekday?" Teresa, my mother-in-law, asked curiously. "Well, Ryan called in sick today because he wasn't feeling well, so I thought a surprise party might cheer him up. He'd love to have you both here to celebrate with him," I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, I'm so happy for him," Teresa replied, smiling. I hurried them into the car and drove back to our apartment as quickly as I could. When we arrived, instead of ringing the doorbell, I used my keys to unlock the front door. I turned on my phone's camera and told my in-laws that I wanted to capture Ryan's reaction to the surprise. The living room was empty, but I knew exactly where to find them. I led my parents-in-law quietly toward the bedroom, motioning for them to follow me on tiptoe. When I opened the bedroom door, the sight that greeted us was exactly what I had feared. Ryan and Julie were caught in the act, frozen in shock at being discovered. Ryan's face turned red as he yelled, "You filthy pig! What are you doing here?" Calmly, I replied, "I'm not alone." I stepped aside, revealing his parents standing behind me, their faces twisted in horror. Ryan and Julie scrambled to get dressed, while Ryan desperately tried to explain. "Mom, Dad, this isn't what it looks like. I can explain, please wait." But Jason and Teresa were too disgusted to listen. They turned and left the room in shame. I followed them back to the living room, trying to hold back the tears. "Jason, Teresa, I'm so sorry you had to see that, but I didn't know any other way to expose the truth. Ryan is your son, and I knew you wouldn't believe me unless you saw it with your own eyes." Teresa shook her head, clearly struggling to process what had just happened. "I don't even know what to say. I feel so disgusted I could throw up." Just then, Ryan rushed into the living room, his voice desperate. "Mom, please let me explain. This is a misunderstanding. Both of these sisters are trying to frame me." But Jason cut him off sharply. "Shut up, Ryan. Just shut up. Don't act like you're some innocent child who can be easily tricked. We saw exactly what was happening, and there's no excuse for it." Ryan stood there, speechless, as the weight of his actions settled in, and I knew that our lives would never be the same. "I can't stand to look at you, Ryan. We're leaving. Don't you dare contact us ever again, you disgust us," Teresa said with a tone of finality. As soon as Jason and Teresa walked out the door, Ryan and Julie turned their anger on me. "You ugly, selfish woman. Always playing the victim," Julie sneered. "You've been like this your whole life. I stayed at your house, and instead of being grateful, you accuse me of sleeping with your husband? Wow, I was stupid to think you might have matured, but you're just as awful as you were as a kid." "And what about you?" I shot back. "A pathetic scumbag who's just as rotten now as ever. Why didn't you tell my husband about your lazy, couch potato teenage years? Embarrassed to admit who you really are. I've had enough of both of you," I shouted, pulling out my phone. "I'm sending this recording to Mom and Dad. They deserve to know what kind of daughter they have." Julie's eyes widened in fear. Don't you dare do that. I'll sue you for framing me. Good luck with that, I retorted. Finally, I pulled out the divorce papers I'd been carrying in my bag and threw them in Ryan's face. Both Ryan and Julie were furious, hurling insults at me as I grabbed my bags and left the house. I had already packed my things, so I didn't have to endure their cruelty any longer. I moved in with a friend for a few days until I could find a decent lawyer to help me secure alimony from Ryan. I sent the video recordings to my parents, who were horrified and ashamed of Julie and Ryan's betrayal. My parents wanted me to move back to Maryland, but I was determined to rebuild my life on my own, so I stayed with my friend. 6 days later, I received a call from my mother-in-law, Teresa. "Lauren, where are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Teresa, what's wrong?" "You sound upset," I replied, concerned. "It's Ryan. He's been arrested for embezzling funds from his company." "What?" I gasped. "Yes, the amount is massive, over $500,000. We need to return the money as soon as possible, or he'll face criminal charges with severe punishment." $500,000, oh my God, I whispered, trying to process the information. "Yes, and if we don't pay it back, Ryan's situation will get much worse," Teresa continued, her voice full of despair. "Then why don't you ask him to pay the money back and be done with it?" I suggested. "Julie has run off with the money," Teresa explained. "The police are looking for her, but we think she's already left Texas. Ryan transferred the money to her account to avoid suspicion, but after he got caught, she disappeared. He's been trying to reach her, but she's abandoned him." The shock of it all left me speechless. Julie had not only betrayed me, but also Ryan, taking the money and running, leaving him to face the consequences alone. I wasn't shocked to learn that Julie could do something so selfish. She was always a terrible person. "Teresa, I understand what you're going through, but after everything I've seen, I'm afraid I can't offer any help to Ryan. I'm sorry, but I just can't. But we need to find Julie and the money to save Ryan. Could you help the police by giving them details about Julie's friends and relatives where she might be hiding?" Teresa pleaded. I paused, taking in all the information. "Teresa, it's been over a decade since I left Maryland, but I'll see if I can remember anyone Julie might be in contact with." After hanging up, I started making a list of friends and relatives where Julie might be hiding. For a moment, I hesitated. Was it right to give this information to the cops and potentially get my sister arrested? But then, memories of all the humiliation and bullying Julie had put me through flooded back. I knew that even if Julie was arrested or the company got the money back, Ryan might still escape with only minor consequences. That thought fueled my determination. I decided to take my revenge on both of them and gave all the information to the police. There was no way I was going to let Julie enjoy that stolen money. One name stood out on my list: Lily, Julie's best friend. Lily was just as devious as Julie, and I had a strong feeling that Julie would be hiding out with her. I was right. 5 days later, Julie was arrested at a bar in Maryland, partying lavishly with Lily. The police investigation also uncovered that Lily was deeply involved in the money laundering scheme. It turned out that Julie and Lily had been embezzling funds from companies for quite some time. Ryan, being a newcomer to their schemes, was charged with lighter offenses and was released on bail after a few months. However, Julie and Lily faced much more severe charges. My parents, disgusted by what Julie had done, refused to bail her out. While all of this was unfolding, I filed for divorce and alimony from Ryan and Julie. Since both were in jail, they had to pay the alimony from their savings. When Ryan was finally released, he struggled to find a decent job due to his criminal record. He ended up losing all his savings to the divorce and court cases, and eventually had to take up an odd job just to get by. As for Julie, she remains in jail, rotting away with her evil friend Lily. Sometimes, revenge can be incredibly satisfying.